So it should create the sheet. So run it, let's run this. So you need to run always the main. And voila, let's go back. Okay, let's go to a sheet and you can see that we got the data how I want it, right? So this is how the data is coming. You can, if you only need the IDs, you can delete these from like all this first part in the code itself, or just using a formula, right? That just extracts the number. In this case, I just pull everything raw so you can see how it's coming to. And then here we have the reach, right? Impressions, clicks, CTR. Well, CTR should be like this, right? And then CPC and the currency, right? It's gonna be also like that. All right, guys. So short and sweet, how you can connect LinkedIn ads with a Google Sheet using the API. So you can move data using the API, right? So in this case, I'm going to pull ads data. I run a campaign just for this demo, three ads. So pretty much that's the data that I want to move to a Google Sheet, right? So it's just a CTR and reach and stuff like that. So I have the chart here of what we need to do. So first we need to get the client ID and client secret. This will take a little bit of time, but I will explain step by step what we need to do here. So once we have that, we need to set up like a way to get a refresh token, right? So for the ones who don't know how some APIs work, for example, this API in specific, we need to get a refresh token. And with this refresh token, we can get an access token. So the idea here is that this refresh token they have like a validity period that is long, so we can reuse them multiple times, because the access token tends to like expire pretty quickly, right? For example, this refresh token for this API in specific, the LinkedIn API, lasts for 1 year. So every year you need to do all the setup again to get the client and then client secret and re-authenticate, all right? But this is just for this case, right? And then once you have the refresh token, you can make calls to API getting the access token. This access token lasts for like, I think 1 day. So that's why you need to use a refresh token, right? But I will explain how to get this. I already coded like the way that we can get this refresh token, so you don't need to worry about it, right? And then once we have that, we can get the data. In this case, I will just put ads data, pretty simple, but the API works this way for everything, right? So how to get this client ID and client secret? So the way you get this client ID and client secret is creating an app in developers LinkedIn, right? So I will put everything in the description, the links that you need to refer to, but let's do it, right? So here we are in developer LinkedIn, as I mentioned. This is the link. I'm not sure you can see it, guys, but let me put it here. So this is the link, right? Well, the link is up here. So once you are in this link, you need to go to my apps. And here you can create apps, right? So that's pretty much the logic. You create an app contain client ID and client secret, and that's the way that you connect to API. I was testing here with some apps, but the idea is the same, right? So you create an app, then you get a name here. I will put just YouTube demo. And then the thing that you need to connect here that are mandatory is the LinkedIn page, and you have to upload a logo, right? It doesn't need to be something like in specific. Literally, you can upload whatever image you want. But this part is important, right? You need to connect the actual page that you have in LinkedIn, right, for your company or page. So I will use mine, automation for growth. Automation for growth. All right, it's this one, right? And then the logo. All right, and then you select a logo. I just uploaded my own logo here. And then you click in I agree with the terms. And then we need to create the app. So you just create the app here. And when you have the app, this is what it will look like, right? And then here you can see that you have some options. So for example, here, if you go to auth, you see that you can see the client ID and this is the secret, right? But you need to do something else. So here in products, you need to select what do you want to like connect this app to, like what type of product. For example, we are going to use the advertising API, because I'm pulling data from my ads. But here you can do multiple things, right? You can connect any other product and it will be the same. So this one in specific, for example, you see that is grayed out because I need to authenticate first. So authentication is pretty simple, right? So you go here to settings and then verify, and here you can create this verification URL. You copy that and you just open in a new tab and you paste it, and it will tell you like, okay, you want to connect this app. You say yes and you confirm, and that's it, right? You go back, I think you refresh, and you see that it was verified. And now if you go back to products, you can see that now all of them are not grayed out, right? So the one that we need is this one. Okay, and for this API in specific, you need to request the access. So you get this form. And here is pretty simple, right? So you just need to fill the name, the company address, and the company website, right? And you just complete the form. You will get some details there that you need to fill out, but it's pretty simple, and it takes like around, for me when I did it, it took me like 12 hours to receive this access. I checked next day and I got it already. So it might be the same for you guys. So when you finish this, you will get this completed. So for example, let's go back to one of the apps that already got the access, so you can see how it looked like. For example, this one, this was the first one that I created for this test. So you can see here in products that once it's approved, it's going to appear like that, added products, right? And then here you can see all the endpoints and the documentation, right? So basically the thing that we need for this case is the client ID and the client secret, right? And again, like another part that is important is that you need to add here the authorized redirect URIs for your app. So the idea here is why this is important, because once you do the authentication to get the refresh token, it's going to redirect somewhere, so you can get an auth code, and with that code you can authenticate. Usually some APIs are picky and they ask you to use your own website, but I was testing, as you can see here, and you don't really need to have like a proper website to do this. Like for example, I tried with google.com and it worked. So you can use whatever. I'm using my website here because that's the simplest, but if you don't have a website, like a domain, just use whatever, like Google's fine. Okay, so let's use these credentials and then we can start doing this authentication, all right? So the first thing is like creating the spreadsheet. So let me do that. All right, so here I am in a new spreadsheet. Let me rename this so you can see. I'm just gonna put like YouTube demo LinkedIn, right? Pretty simple. Then you go here to extensions, app script. Let me make this bigger so you guys can see. I think like that looks good. Let me rename this as well. All right, so let me explain you how we're gonna have the structure here. So the way I created this to make it like super simple for you is that we wanna have two files, right? So one is the code itself that is gonna pull the ads. The other one is going to be one that is called authentication. So these two codes are going to be connected. So let's start with code, right? So let's start with a config. As always, I create this config in all my projects. The idea with this config is that it's going to be a variable with more variables inside that you can change easily. So you can see here that we need to get some things. So the client ID and client secret, we just got that. So I will put this in a second. This token, this is the refresh token that we need to get that I will explain. We're going to get it with this file, auth. And then this is just the token URL. This is just to get the access token. Yeah, so we need to get this URN. So basically, this is just the ID of your campaigns manager, right? And then here we need the sheet name. This is just, you can use whatever you want. This is how I want it to be called. This is when we run the code, it's gonna create this tab and it's gonna put all the data there, right? But you can put it whatever. It's gonna have it as LinkedIn ads, and then this is the report dates back. So basically, you know, how many days back you want this report to be. In this case, I just want the last month, but depending on how you want it, you can just change that here, right? So we need to get this to here. And if you remember, like coming back to this is our client ID and client secret, right? So you just connect that. And you copy that here. And then we do the same with the client secret. And then we need to get this refresh token. So this is the important part. So as I mentioned, I already coded something, so you don't need to worry about it. So this is the code. I will put it here. You have this code below in the description. You can download it for free, don't worry. So basically you can see here that I added another config, and here I have three things, right? So I have the redirect URI that pretty much is the same that I explained before, that you can use your own website or Google or whatever. In this case, I will have my website just for this demo. But again, I was just testing here with different websites just to check. You can see here I added this comment, so you must match what you have in the LinkedIn app. Make sure it's the same, otherwise it's gonna throw you some errors. For example, if I check, it is literally the same one. You can see that it's highlighted there. And then here are the scopes, right? So this part is also important, but it's also cool that here you can see you have the scopes here already listed, right? In the same app here under auth. So you just need to copy this and see which one you need, and you just copy that, right? So in this case, you can see that I only need 2 ads and ads reporting. Something that is interesting here is that these scopes don't need to be without, like in comma. Don't add a comma here or something, just add a space, all right? Because I have something in the code, you can see here that it's going to encode that for the API to understand. So just leave it like that. If you need to add more, just give it another space and you add another one, all right? I put it here, a space separated. And then here's the state. This state is just an arbitrary number that you can put or whatever, like in a string. It's just like every time that you do authentication, like to keep it like unique, right? So you can tell the API, okay, this is the first time, second time, third time doing this authentication. In this case, that was the second time that I was running it, but you can like put like, I don't know, third time, right? Just change something. You can see here a random string for authentication. Okay, so we need to run first this one so we can get a link and we can authenticate. And then once we get that, we're gonna get an authentication code and you paste it here, right? So you can see that I already put some placeholders there. So save this and let's run the first one, right? So build logic, this one here, run it. And you can see here that we got this link. So you just copy this link and then you open it where you have LinkedIn. This is the one. And you will get this. Okay, so the first time that you do this is gonna ask you to log in. So you log in, right? And then voila, you have it here. So you can see here that the link, the URL has this code. So this is the part that you need to copy. Just go until the end before state. You copy that. And then here, you go to the second function and you paste it here like that. All right. So, and now we need to run the second function, right? So you click here, run, and you can see that we got this row JSON, and here you can see multiple things. So we have this access token, you can ignore it because again, this will expire quickly. But then we got something else, the refresh token. So this part is the important part. You just copy that until here, and you just paste in the first config that we had here, like that, right? And that's it. Actually, you can see here the expires and the scopes that you have, right? So this is your seconds, it means in 1 year. So for example, if you see like seconds to months, for example, and you paste this, you will see that it is gonna expire in almost 12 months, which is 1 year. It's what I mentioned, right? Or if you do it today, it's the same. 365 should say, right? You see? That's just pretty much 1 year. So yeah, this is the important part. Once we get this refresh token, now we can make also API, right? So let's say, you can just delete this file if you don't need it. You just need to run it once. But now, once you get this refresh token, you don't need this auth file anymore. Okay, so now we can start coding. So here, to give you like high level idea of how this is gonna work, how it's gonna be a structure, we're gonna have 4 functions, right? So one is gonna be the main function that is gonna orchestrate everything. Then we're gonna have a fetcher that is gonna pull the data from the API. But also we need another one that is gonna be the one that is gonna do this change from refresh token to access token, right? So use the refresh token to get the access token, and then with that token we can use it in this fetcher to pull the data, right? And once we get the data, we need another function that is gonna transform all that data that we're getting from the API, and we're gonna put it in the spreadsheet. We're gonna write it, we're gonna format it and write it to a spreadsheet, right? So you can see here, I will start with the main so you can get like the idea of what I'm saying here. So you can see here the main, right? So as always, I added some comments here and in the steps so you can see what each part is doing. So first we need to get the access token, right? So we're gonna have this function that is gonna do this, the change from refresh token to access token, right? And then here we're gonna have this fetcher that is gonna use that access token to fetch the data. And once we have the data, we pass the data to this function that is going to transform and write the data to a Google Sheet, right? So let's start with this one so we can get the access token. All right, so this is the one for the access token. And then actually, okay. All right, let me just move it a little bit here. All right, so you can see here, basically the first part is that we're just making sure that we have actually a refresh token so this doesn't break. And once we have that, we just build this, the payload to send. You can see that, I'm using the refresh token, I'm passing the client ID and client secret, and the grant type is refresh token. And then we send in that, right? So this is just the standard for a post method. We need to send this and we get the response. We just make sure that we actually got a response. The 200 means was successful or not. If it is not, it's gonna throw the error. If it is successful, we continue. And yeah, the idea here is that we get the data, which is the response, and within the data is gonna be a key called access token, and that you just grab the access token and we return that, right? And that moment this variable is gonna become the access token. So now with that, we can jump to the next one, which is the fetcher. Okay, so this is the fetcher, and here pretty much what we're doing is that the first part is we're kind of like setting up the report, the dates, right? The way I put it here is that it's gonna be 30 days, but like we need to code that here. So we kind of like, first we get in the today's state, and then we decrease in 30 days or whatever you put here. You can see that this function is doing that. So we created here the start and end month, and this is what we're passing here, the date range. And then this is the endpoint that we need to call to get the data for ads. These endpoints change depending on what you wanna pull from the API, but you can see here, right? In the first part that we did, when you go to products, you can check each documentation for each product, right? In this case, you can see it here, and in there it says that you need to use this endpoint. So this is the query that you use to get like the data. You can see that I want to get impressions, clicks, the cost in local currency, the reach, right? And then when we have that, we just make the call. Something important is that you need to pass always this. This is important if you want to use the second version of the API. The API has two versions, the first one and the second one. If you want to use the second version, you need to make sure you pass this, otherwise it's going to default to the first one. This is just for the ones who care about this, right? But like, if you don't really care about that, both APIs will work, it's fine. And then once you get that, this is the response, you just kind of like parse it to a JSON and you return that, right? And at that point, we're gonna be here, we got the data, right? So now we just need to transform the data that we got and we're gonna write it to a sheet. So you can see that I have this other function here. It's this one here, right? Transform and write to a sheet. So this one is receiving the data, right? And then here we're preparing this array that basically is gonna create like the data how I want it to look like in the spreadsheet. So this will be the headers that I have. So I want to get the campaign ID, the ad set ID. This is how they're called in LinkedIn ads, but yeah, it's the same logic, right? So campaign ID, ad set ID, and ad ID. Then the reach for that ad, the impressions, clicks, CTR, CPC, and then how much I spend on that. And then here, this is just some mapping, right? So we are flattening all the data and putting it like in beautiful rows so we can write that to a sheet. And here we're writing that data to a sheet, right? So here we're making sure that the sheet actually exists. If the sheet doesn't exist, it's gonna create a sheet. If the sheet already exists, because we're running this multiple times, then you can see that it's cleaning that, and then we are writing the data. So that's pretty much the logic here. So let's save this and test it and see if it is actually working. So if we go back to the sheet, you can see that I don't have anything here. It's just one sheet. So you should create a sheet. So run it. Let's run this. So you need to run always the main. First time that you run this, it's gonna pop up that you need to grant access. So you grant access and then continue here. And voila, let's go back. Okay, let's go to a sheet and you can see that we got the data how I want it, right? So this is how the data is coming. You can, if you only need the IDs, you can delete these from like all this first part in the code itself, or just using a formula, right? That just extracts the number. In this case, I just pull everything raw so you can see how it's coming to. And then here we have the reach, right? Impressions, clicks, CTR. Well, CTR should be like this, right? And then CPC and the currency, right? This can be also like that. So if you compare, just to make sure that we actually put in the data, you can see here, let me see. Yeah, you can see here that I spent, for example, 10 on this one, 7 on that one, and then 15 here. We have these clicks, right? 8, 1, and 3. So you can see here. Yeah, if we go to one of them, just to check impressions and reach, you can see here, this is the impressions, right? 7K on this one. And yeah, that's the logic here. So this is how it works. But yeah, like the idea is the same. Once you understand how this part works with the advertising ID, you could select any other product and it will work the same. So yeah, guys, I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. As always, put them down below in the comments. I will reply to them as soon as I see them. If you want to get this code below in the description, you can just click there. It's gonna take you to my website and you can download that code for free. Yeah, thanks.